Well, a crucial diplomatic meeting between US President Joe Biden and China's Xi Jinping. Well, they had their first face-to-face meeting in a year. And the intention was to working on stabilizing the fraught relations between the two countries. Of course, the relations between US and China have been at an all-time low, particularly after Nancy Pelosi actually visited Taiwan. And several crucial takeaways from this diplomatic meeting as well. In fact, the White House has also now issued a statement where US seems to have pulled no punches, because US talks about human rights violations in various countries, including Hong Kong, also in Tibet. But the key takeaway also is the fact that US and China have agreed to a military agreement, also in a sense reopening their military talks. This comes after there was a deadlock as far as these efforts were concerned. Also after a China-based surveillance balloon was actually shot by a US in US as well. So after that, relations between the two countries have been fraught. But this meeting comes as a crucial diplomatic turn between, as far as the diplomatic relations between the two countries are concerned. Apart from that, artificial intelligence and also drug crackdown was discussed in that crucial meeting. Before we actually unpack what all happened in that meeting, listen in to what the leaders had to say.
President Xi and I tasked our teams to maintain the policy and law enforcement coordination going forward to make sure it works. Secondly, and this is critically important, we're reassuming military-to-military contact, direct contacts. So we're back to direct, open, clear, direct communications on a direct basis. Vital miscalculations on either side can cause real trouble with a country like China or any other major country. And so I think we're making real progress there as well. He's a dictator in the sense that he is a guy who runs a country that is a communist country that is based on a form of government totally different than ours.
So, well, while several important agreements were actually inked, what's important here that Joe Biden called President Xi a dictator. So, of course, there are some caveats there as well, even though this image is rather defining of the two world leaders meeting. Joining me now on the broadcast, Prabhu Dayal, former diplomat, and also with me, Yogesh Gupta, a former diplomat, somebody who has very interesting insights on India-China relations. Going across to you first, Prabhu Dayal, what according to you is the key takeaway as far as this meeting is concerned? Of course, what seems like the biggest takeaway is this military communication that the two countries now are looking to establish. Of course, this comes after there has been a deadlock as far as that is concerned, after Nancy Pelosi's Taiwan visit, and of course that surveillance balloon that was shot dead by the US as well. How crucial is it, and what according to you is the key takeaway?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on your show. I think it was a very important meeting because this was their first face-to-face talks in a year. And they met for 4 hours. They discussed a whole range of issues, particularly in the context of the shimmering differences which have been bedeviling the relationship between US and China. I think it's a significant breakthrough that the two governments now plan to resume military contacts, which was severed after Nancy Pelosi, who was then the Speaker of the House of Representatives, when she visited Taiwan in August 2022. And the Chinese, in reaction, had severed the military contacts. So President Biden and Xi Jinping, when they agreed to reopen the presidential hotline, resume military-to-military communications, and make other, take other steps which would ease the bilateral relationship. For instance, they talked about curbing phenytoin production. Now, phenytoin is an opioid drug which has been plaguing the United States. There are a lot of young people who are taking phenytoin, and the effects are there for everybody to see. It's creating a lot of homelessness. And China has agreed to take steps to curb it. So I think all said and done, the fact that the two countries are back to open and direct communication is indeed very, very significant. And as President Biden said, that Xi Jinping and he agreed that either of them could pick up the phone and talk to each other.
Absolutely.
So
And as
this
you
is
said, it is a
significant. But I
breakthrough
just
in a
want to add,
sense. In fact, this image of the two leaders meeting itself is quite defining. But Yogesh Gupta, there seem to be many insurmountable issues as well. Because in its statement as well, the White House has said that the US is concerned about human rights violations in Tibet and Hong Kong, and also various unfair trade practices as far as China is concerned, as the US puts it. So how much of it is actually going to materialize? Is it just perhaps a rhetoric, or do you see a lot of it materializing as well, given these insurmountable issues, as I said?
I will not call it a breakthrough or such a huge development. It was an important meeting, and I think both sides had their compulsions. The United States, because it is already involved in conflicts in the Gaza as well as Ukraine, and it wanted to have a quiet front as far as Taiwan is concerned. China's economy has declined substantially. It was about 76% of the US GDP in 2021. From that level, it has come down to something like 63% in the last quarter of current year. So China's economy has been going down. So because of those compulsions, they were wanting to have these talks. Yes, there has been some progress in regard to restoring the military communications, but one doesn't know how far these communications will go. And tomorrow,
That's
if
right.
there is another incident or something else happens, because after all, US has certain policies regarding freedom of navigation in the South China Sea, Taiwan Strait, as well as helping Taiwan. Then all these can again be disrupted. So
Absolutely.
I won't
In fact, the
say
White House has said that that US's commitment to these policies is unwavering, and that remains intact. And of course, as you said, the economic perspective is also something that is important here, because China's economy, amid global headwinds, is something that has been of concern. But how should India be viewing this? Because while the US in its statement has also said that we continue to further the interests of our Indo-Pacific allies, how should India be viewing this? Because we have the Quad grouping on one hand, we of course had a successful G20 meeting. So at a time when we are looking at an alternative bloc to counter China's power, how should India be viewing this meeting? Prabhu Dayal, you first, and then I'll come back to you, Yogesh Gupta.
Well, India doesn't want any escalation of tensions in the Indo-Pacific region. So, as far as we are concerned, I think we should favor any de-escalation of tension between the United States and China, because these tensions impact the entire global situation. But as my friend Mr. Yogesh Gupta mentioned, things are not going to be so smooth suddenly. But I think a first step has been taken, and both sides have indicated that they are looking at methods to smooth the rocky period in the relationship, which took a turn for the worse after a Chinese surveillance balloon transited the United States and was shot down by a US fighter jet in February. So there have been a number of things which have been impacting the relationship, and if things can be eased, I think India is in favor of such easing.
Absolutely. And in fact, as you said, the sort of de-escalation of the fraught relations and the tensions between the two countries is, of course, something that's a positive and welcome change, welcome move, for global diplomacy, as you said. But Yogesh Gupta, how do you think India should be sort of viewing this? Because for the US as well, it's a bit of a tightrope walk. In its statement as well, the White House says that, the interests of the Indo-Pacific allies is something that's sacrosanct for the US.
Yeah, absolutely. We will, of course, be very happy if the tensions were to reduce between the United States and China. But as far as the main policies of both sides are concerned, we must remember that there is no change in the main policies. When the US says that they will continue to compete, when the US says that they will continue to pursue their interests and so on, and that those policies will not change. So it doesn't signal any change in the underlying or the fundamental policy. It's only a question of the atmospherics. And as far as the atmospherics are concerned, Yes, they have agreed to restore the military communications. That's a positive development. But one doesn't know how far these things will continue. All this has happened in the past also.
Yes.
Such promises have been made in the past too.
Absolutely. And as you said, there are certain fundamental differences between the two countries, between the two global powers that need to be ironed out as well. Thanks very much, gentlemen, for joining us on the broadcast.